England's existence is often treated as obvious, mostly because people jump straight to the later stories of Great Britain and the United Kingdom. But those unions could only happen after England already existed as a recognizable kingdom. So where did England come from? Who ruled the land before the English? And how did scattered regions turn into a single realm? Most historians point to Æthelstan's reign, starting in 927, as the moment England first becomes a true unified kingdom, though the path there was long, violent, and anything but straightforward. When Roman authority in Britain weakened and eventually disappeared, the island's power structure fractured. Into that vacuum came waves of Germanic-speaking groups, often grouped under the label Anglo-Saxons. Some accounts suggest that, after Rome's departure, local Britons faced pressure from northern raiders, commonly identified as Picts and Scots, and may have sought help from these newcomers. But whatever the original arrangement was, it did not last. Over time, the new arrivals asserted themselves, pushing the native Britons aside and building their own political order. By around the early medieval period, what we now call England wasn't a single country at all, but a patchwork of rival kingdoms, commonly remembered as Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, East Anglia, Kent, Essex, Sussex. For centuries, power shifted between these kingdoms through alliances, battles, and dynastic changes, often with limited written records to guide us. Then came the outsiders who would reshape everything, the Vikings. In 793, a raid on the monastery at Lindisfarne sent a chilling message across the Anglo-Saxon world. This wasn't just theft, it was a direct assault on sacred space, and it signaled that a far larger storm was coming. Over the following decades, Viking attacks escalated from raids into occupation. By 870, East Anglia had fallen to Danish forces. Mercia followed a few years later. Then Northumbria was struck hard as well. By the mid-800s, one major Anglo-Saxon kingdom stood as the last serious holdout, Wessex. When Wessex's king Ethelred died, his brother Alfred inherited a kingdom on the edge of collapse. At first, Alfred relied on payments and temporary deals to buy time, but eventually he fought back. That turning point is often linked to the Battle of Edington, where Alfred's forces defeated the Danes and stopped Wessex from being absorbed. The victory didn't erase Viking power, but it ensured that an Anglo-Saxon core would survive long enough to push outward later. Around the same period, turmoil in Mercia created an opening. Alfred expanded his influence there too, installing loyal leadership, rather than treating it as a fully separate realm. Parts of Mercia still remained under Viking control, but the balance of power had changed. Wessex was no longer just surviving, it was becoming the center of resistance. After Alfred's era, the pressure on Viking-held territory increased. Following leadership changes around 911, two figures became especially important: Edward the Elder in Wessex, Æthelflæd, Lady of the Mercians. Together, they tightened the net around the Danelaw, the regions under Danish influence and control. Step by step, territory was reclaimed. By 917, expansion accelerated. Edward absorbed East Anglia, while Æthelflæd drove Mercian strength northward. In some places, resistance collapsed not through dramatic battles, but through local decisions, communities choosing submission over destruction. When Æthelflæd died, her daughter Ælfwine was expected to succeed. Instead, Mercian politics shifted fast, and the result was decisive. Edward seized control of Mercia, bringing the two power centers into one overarching authority. By the time Edward died in 924, multiple neighboring rulers had acknowledged his dominance, setting the stage for something bigger than Wessex or Mercia alone. Edward's son Æthelstan inherited a realm already expanding, but he took the final step that many historians treat as the birth of England as a unified kingdom. A key piece was Northumbria, especially York, which still sat at the crossroads of Anglo-Saxon and Viking power. Through both strategy and timing, including a marriage alliance involving Æthelstan's sister and a Viking ruler, Æthelstan gained his opening. When that ruler died, Æthelstan moved quickly and secured York. With York under his crown in 927, Æthelstan effectively brought the major English regions under one ruler. He styled himself King of the English, and this moment is widely treated as the clearest starting point for the Kingdom of England. But England still wasn't as stable or as secure as it sounds on paper. Æthelstan's ambitions didn't stop at England's borders. In 937, conflict erupted on a massive scale as forces from across the British Isles pushed back against English expansion. An alliance formed against him, led by major regional kings, including the ruler of Alba, Scotland, and the Viking leadership of Dublin, alongside Strathclyde. The two sides met at the famous Battle of Brunanburh. We don't know with certainty where Brunanburh was fought, but the outcome is clear. Æthelstan won, and the coalition was broken at an enormous cost in lives. Even though Scotland and Strathclyde remained independent, Brunanburh mattered because it demonstrated that this new England could survive a multi-kingdom challenge. Many see it as a moment that strengthened unity and identity among the English, less a founding date than a proof of concept written in blood. After Æthelstan died in 939, England entered another unstable period, and the Vikings exploited it quickly. The Viking ruler from Dublin moved to reclaim territory, taking York and forcing England to accept losses across parts of the north. But the English response was swift. Under King Edmund, England regained ground. After a Viking succession shift, Edmund struck back, retaking territory piece by piece. Within a few years, the Vikings were pushed out of Northumbria again, reuniting the kingdom under English authority. Edmund even campaigned into Strathclyde, but rather than absorbing everything into England, some territory ended up under Scottish authority, showing that borders and control were still fluid. Then, in 946, Edmund was murdered, and the crown passed to his brother Edgar, and with him came yet another struggle for the north. Not long after, a Norwegian leader, Eric Bloodaxe, seized Northumbria, triggering years of instability over who would control the region. Eventually, English power reasserted itself, and Northumbria was reclaimed for good. After Edred's death, there was a messy succession. Edwig briefly ruled, then was replaced in practice by his brother Edgar, at first as a co-ruler, and then as sole king after Edwig's early death. Under Edgar the Peaceful, England finally moved from a kingdom that exists to a kingdom that functions. His reign emphasized internal order and stability, administration and reform, maintaining unity across populations, including people living under former Danelaw customs. Rather than tearing everything down, Edgar's government preserved many local systems to reduce unrest, helping weld the kingdom together into something durable. England wasn't born overnight. It emerged in stages. After Rome, new Anglo-Saxon kingdoms rose, then Viking invasions shattered the old order. Wessex survived under Alfred, expanded under Edward and Æthelflaed, and finally, under Æthelstan, the major English lands were pulled under one crown. Even then, the kingdom still had to prove it could last. Brunanburh showed England could withstand a coalition of enemies, and later Viking comebacks forced the English to reconquer and secure the north all over again. By the time Edgar the Peaceful strengthened laws, administration, and unity across former Danelaw regions, England wasn't just a name, it was a stable kingdom. And that's how England was formed, step by step, battle by battle, and ruler by ruler. This is the first video in our story of England, and it only gets bigger from here. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next chapter is coming soon.